What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new First Descendant video, and I'm here to talk about Gluttony and how to beat him. This guide is to help people understand the fight and what to expect when you engage this boss. I understand this might be hard for people who are getting into these fights during a public session, but try your best and not be cringe to each other so you can work it out and actually beat the boss. I already have several clears on this guy, legit runs by the way, with no exploits or bugs. First things first, before you enter, pay attention to all the weak points, elemental weaknesses, and damage types. He deals chill damage and has high resistance towards it, and he is weak to fire. Best weapon recommendations are the Enduring Legacy and Greg's Reverse Fate, or any weapons you enjoy, but also try to have the fire element on it. Or you can even just go a raw damage build, but make sure you have the proper multipliers. Speaking of damage, Gluttony does a lot of damage, so be sure to have a decent survivability setup alongside anti-freeze solution. You don't need to rank this up, it's just there to help you resist the freezing status effect. Otherwise, you don't have to mod for this, and just be aware of your surroundings and avoid his attacks. Let's start explaining the entire scene. When you enter the fight, you will have 3 towers that spawn in 3 different locations that spit out white balls. Tip: do not stand near where they spawn because they deal a lot of damage and can one-shot a squishy build. Also, do not stand next to the towers as the balls spawn. They do drop down, and if they make contact with you, they will freeze you while dealing a lot of damage. Now, these balls are a main part of his mechanic and are used to pacify Gluttony and kill him before he does his wipe check. Make sure to have your Asseive active to see his Enrage meter underneath his health bar. This is the invulnerable Enrage meter. His right arm is his wipe mechanic bar. His right arm will have a tube that gradually fills up if you deal damage to him. If this tube fully fills up with purple fluids, he will wipe everyone. The objective is to juggle between dealing damage to him while pushing the white balls into him to reduce the tube fluids in his arm. A coordinated team without Valby, which I will get into in a bit, will have at least 2 jugglers and 2 main DPSs. The juggler's job is to shoot balls into him while filling in damage in between. You can juggle the balls by shooting them towards Gluttony. He tends to move a lot, so be sure to be around towers that are closer to him. Try your best to get one of his shoulders yellow before the Enrage. Mount him to get enough damage down. If you can't manage to do that, it's fine, but you will get to the point where he enrages. This is where everybody is juggling balls, and needs to pay attention to shooting everything around him as you split up and focus on shooting balls into him. But now there's a slight twist. During this phase, purple balls will spawn alongside the white ones. These purple balls will fill up his wipe check tube on his arm a lot faster if he absorbs them. The objective here is to detonate these purple balls near him. Successfully dealing with this enrage phase will drain the tube in his arm, and now you're free for some DPS. And of course, the other guys are gonna go back to juggling. Now, Ultimate Valby is a descendant that makes the ball juggling phase a lot easier as she saves you ammo with her skill module. Valby can suck up the balls and send them flying together in the same direction. It does have a travel distance, so that means you would have to change position and redirect them towards him if he does move out the way. Or you can follow up with shooting them to force the balls in. God, this sounds really bad when I say it. Now let's take a look at his attack patterns. He has 5 attacks to watch out for. He has a projectile that he shoots that splits up near the end into several ice shrapnels. You can easily dodge his attack by paying attention to the blue glow that emerges out of the barrel. You can dodge as soon as you see this because he pauses before he unleashes the shots. He does 2 to 3 of these shots. His other attack is where he shoots out random ice bolts from his body. These can either hit or miss you. Just take cover or be evasive. Another attack is where he leans back and launches out ice balls that shoot out from the center. These deal damage and freeze you to either get to high ground or low ground. Simple as that. Then his laser beam, where it targets one person and he builds up a charge to then shoot out a railgun beam that has additional random ice debris that can damage you. You can easily dodge his attack by moving out the way as soon as he shoots it. And his final attack is a massive hand swing. This is the most dangerous one. It has a massive hitbox and can one-shot you, so keep your distance. Another tip, when you stagger Gluttony and blow your DPS load into him, make sure to get some distance as soon as he recovers from his down state, because he's most likely to do his massive arm swing or shoot out balls, so please pay attention. So essentially, when you enter this fight, you have to keep an eye out on the tube, juggle balls, DPS him, and avoid getting hit. Other than that, he is a very straightforward fight, but then public lobbies do be pain, so I understand. Now let's go over the builds I used for this fight. I personally enjoyed the support role for my team in these fights, as I can take care of the side objectives and buff my team, while also debuffing the boss. But for the Gley build that you've seen in the background footage, you can check out this video. Everything in there that I used is the same, but if you're going to use a Greg's Reverse Fate as the main weapon, then the skill module can be swapped out for either Sanguine or Blood and Iron, up to you. Or just run a Massacre build. Enzo's role is all about giving the team infinite ammo, bonus firearm attack, and with either skill modules, you can give allies damage reduction and movement speed, or a weapon critical hit rate increase. So this is what I'm using. I have a non-attribute reactor. The mounting doesn't matter. All that matters is the cooldown reduction and duration uptime. You're a buffer and debuffer support, not the main DPS. For the components, I have a 2-piece Annihilator and 2-piece Bravery. Max HP, max shield on the Annihilator set. You want to focus on max HP or max shield main stat. Make sure you have decent amount of defense. The Bravery set pieces give you max shield and HP recovery. And also on the sensor, the most important thing you want to have is max MP and MP recovery in combat. And the memory with the double defense and any other defensive attribute. You can see with the final stats, I have 45k defense, decent amount of shields and health. You can swap some things out, not needing to run Annihilator set, and go with 2 World Peace drops for even more HP and max shields. Otherwise, it's up to you. And for the build, just a few things have changed from my previous Enzo build. But as you can see, my main focus on this build is survivability, duration, cooldown reduction, skill cost, and max MP. And the augment is pretty much dependent on your team. Supply Firearm Enhancer for a team that is good enough and can play around your buffs, especially Gley's. But for a more safer route, run Supply Tactical Armor, which grants Enzo and his allies damage reduction and movement speed when you buff your allies. This only works if you have teammates who know that they have an Enzo in the team. Survivability with shield, health, and defense, reducing my skill cooldown as much as possible with MP conversion and nimble fingers, and some insane additional cooldown reduction with multi-talented. When you cast the dimension skill, you can follow up with another skill to get the cooldown reduction buff during that 5-second window. And here's a demonstration of how it works. This is the 4th skill without multi-talented procced. And yes, it takes ages. Now, watch me when I cast my 3rd skill, which is a dimension skill, and follow up with my 4th to snapshot that buff to gain the additional cooldown reduction. You may have noticed it's way faster. Also, make sure to pay attention to your buffs on the side because you don't want to cast your 4th ability while it's already active. You may get an additional final rocket, but you're wasting a skill cooldown without getting a stacking buff. Continuing with the build, you want double duration mods so you can have your ability up for a decent amount. And finally, Enlightenment for max MP, or you can swap this out for Energy Collection, increasing your MP recovery, which also affects the regeneration of both MP recovery in combat and out of combat. And because I'm a support in this fight, I'll be constantly debuffing the boss by reducing its defenses by 30%, so my team does more damage. And that's easily done with the Nazeistra's Devotion. Looking at the unique ability, hitting the enemy's weak point triggers Devotion's Mark, and this Devotion's Mark is a minus 30% defense on the enemy, and it lasts for 3 seconds, and this debuff can always be refreshed if you hit that weak point. And because you're Enzo and you have infinite ammo, you will have a high uptime on this debuff while you're buffing your teammates with your 4th skill. So essentially increasing their total damage output while you're also providing some sustained DPS of your own. I mean, if you want, you can heal allies' shields at the cost of your mana. That's also another reason of having a large mana pool. Taking a look at the build, as you can see, it's focused on sustained damage, crits, weak point, reload, and magazine. Now, when you shoot the target on the weak point, for regular enemies, that's a headshot. You have a pretty good uptime on the debuff, especially with the short reload speed and high critical hit rate. Your other weapons are there to follow up with damage when it's needed, and especially useful when you're juggling balls. That's if you're a juggler and also during the enrage phase. Now onto the Valby loadout, which is the Ball Juggler build. This is the same ultimate Valby I recently built. Of course, this build won't be using supply moisture, and it's all about fondling Gluttony's balls. So the main focus here is being more resilient, having the ability spam, and applying the laundry debuff. She is using the same reactor as Enzo, running double HP auxiliary, HP max shield processor for the additional survivability, and the same two-piece bravery set that Enzo has. Taking a look at the build, you can see I have the Ball Juggler augment. The name is currently bugged, and this is not the original name. And the build is very straightforward. Cooldown reduction and skill cost are the main focus. So I can spam the first skill, and then survivability is the last thing you want to fill out. You want to avoid the skill projectile flight speed mod on here because it overshoots and doesn't drag the balls properly. Also, the laundry debuff has enemies take more damage from non-attribute and electric damage, so free damage if you have electric on your weapons or a high voltage bunny on the team. And you can also run the Nazeistra's Devotion as a support as well to debuff the boss for even further damage. The Enduring Legacy is my main weapon. It's focused on sustained damage and dual elemental damage. You want to have fire modded on the weapon, not as a substat. This is here to give you additional damage and to trigger the perk for that insane additional damage output. Mental Focus and Sharp Precision Shot are the two mods you can have here as the gold special mod. However, you gain more base damage running Mental Focus as you're able to upkeep it fairly easily with that large magazine at your disposal. And here's another thing, not everyone will play Enzo, and you want to have some way to sustain your ammo economy, and you can run 2 general rounds weapon, and the other general rounds weapon is just there to convert ammo. I have my Eternal Willpower here with its usual build, but in this particular fight, I will use it for ammo conversion. With the rounds refining mod, you want to have this weapon active when you pick up different types of ammo to convert it to general rounds ammo for your main DPS weapon. So yeah, this is the Gluttony fight mechanic and builds to help you out. Pretty much everything you want to know when you encounter this fight. And of course, some of the builds that can help you out during this fight. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the builds that I use for my Gluttony clears, and that has been it from me. I do hope you've enjoyed and learned something from this video. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe. For more First Ascendant content, streams, and so much more, do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace. Bye-bye now.